All right, folks, welcome back to the show. There were some interviews in this show that we pre-record earlier in the day. I just want to make you aware that there are some going forward, and I'll tell you which ones they are before we do them, where possible, that were done on the premise based on the first press conference by the police chief in Ferguson, Missouri, okay? And as we told you before we started the panel, right after Dr. Alveda King, in the conversation we had with her, the Ferguson police chief had another press conference about half hour ago and changed the storyline significantly by informing the media that the police officer who shot Michael Brown was not responding to the robbery that Michael Brown was involved in, was not responding to a description of a robbery suspect, and that's why he stopped Michael Brown. He did not know of the robbery when he confronted or when he ran into Michael Brown. He stopped Michael Brown, according to the police chief, because Michael Brown was in the middle of the street blocking traffic. And that's what we now know. We did not know that this morning. And if you've been watching Newsmax, if you've been watching any other cable station or reading any account of that first press conference, the impression was that the officer who shot Michael Brown was responding to, left one location and was responding to the robbery that Michael Brown was involved in, and then the meeting of the two occurred. But that was not the case. So in subsequent interviews on this show, you might see that the facts don't mesh with what we've just learned. That's because those interviews were conducted prior to the show in what we call a pre-tape for the convenience of the person being interviewed from time to time. Also, in the Roland Martin interview, which will air in the 5:40 segment, I mentioned that Dorian Johnson was involved in the robbery. That's the person who is the friend of Michael Brown, who was on TV giving his eyewitness account of how the shooting took place. And I alluded to the fact that he was now involved in the robbery, so how could we believe him? The police said for the first time about a half hour ago, again, brand new, that he was not involved in the robbery. He was in the store, he was on the video, but he was not involved in the robbery. So I want to make that clear. All right, let's go to Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson, president and founder of the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny and host of his own syndicated radio show, the Jesse Lee Peterson Show. Hello, Reverend. How are you, sir?
All is well, Steve. Thanks for having me on.
It's always my pleasure. It's great to talk to you again. It's been too long. All right, so, we've gone from yesterday, where we knew nothing about a robbery, to today, where we originally thought the confrontation, if you will, occurred because the police officer in question was responding to the robbery and came in contact with Michael Brown, who he was viewed as a suspect. Now we find out that that was not the case, that he saw Michael Brown in the street blocking traffic, quote unquote, and that's where the meeting of the two occurred.
Yes, and I'm not surprised about the new news that we're getting. I said from day one that Michael Brown is a thug. The fact that he was running from the cops, period, because good folks do not run from police officers. They follow their instructions. And then when I saw who had gathered around Michael Brown, including the lawyer that represented Trayvon Martin, Al Sharpton, the New Black Panther Party, and others, I knew then that this story was not what they were pretending it to be, because those folks never help good people. They're always on the side of the bad because it's good for their wallets. They make money when they do this. And I just think, Steve, that it's a shame that in America today that criminals are given the benefit of the doubt, especially black criminals, because white criminals are not. But black criminals are given the benefit of the doubt, and the police officers are the suspect. I don't know what has happened to my country.
Well, I just want to make clear, you said that Michael Brown was a thug. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that I heard it right, because we're on a phone connection. Okay.
Yes, he is a thug. I said from day one that he was a thug. The same thing I said about Trayvon Martin when that hoopla was going on about him. I'm like, this guy's a thug. He grew up without both parents in the home. When you look at his Facebook page, he had a gun in his hand, smoking marijuana, had tattoos. He had been thrown out of school. The guy's a thug. Why are we protecting thugs?
Well, what gets me is, the rush to judgment before we know anything. We still don't know anything. We just don't know. We have a couple of eyewitness accounts, but we've seen how eyewitness accounts could differ from the truth in many other cases. I'm not saying that these eyewitness accounts are inaccurate. I'm saying we don't know. We have not heard the police side of the story yet, and yet even in light of this videotape of Michael Brown, pushing the guy in the store and robbing the cigars or whatever they were. I still see CNN on the streets of Ferguson talking to mostly African Americans, if not exclusively African Americans, and the gist of it is, well, even if the tape is real, even if he did rob the store, as if it's not real, it's a fake tape, that doesn't justify shooting him. Well, of course that doesn't justify shooting him, but we don't know what happened.
That's right. I think the breaking news this morning, the press conference from the police department there in Ferguson, it blew the wind out of the liberal media. It's taking the wind away from Al Sharpton and others. But they're so shocked and disappointed, so they got to be pushing something else. And that's why they're coming up with this idea, even if he was robbing the store, even if he did do this or that, that doesn't call for the shooting and killing of Michael Brown. And you're right, we don't know all the details yet, but according to what we've heard from the police department and some others, Michael Brown fought with the officers. He had the cop down in his car at some point, and then according to the officers, he was trying to get the police officer's gun. And once he was not able to get it, it seemed as though he took off and tried to run. I mean, what more do you need? You're dealing with a criminal, and the police officer his life is on the line, and you can't take a risk with those type of thugs.
Turns out that a suspect doesn't have a gun. And before we know the facts, we try to jump to a conclusion. Well, he was unarmed, so there's no way he should have been shot. A cop doesn't know that necessarily until he cuffs and searches the suspect. Right. And if the cop, again, not in the Michael Brown case, because we don't know, but right. If in the Amadou Diallo case, for instance, if a cop says, put your hands up, and you reach in and pull something out, and they think it could be a gun, they have a right to shoot. That's right. You should expect that. Another thing we need to deal with, Steve, is that over the last 40 years or so, these black people have been taught by their leaders and others, NAACP, the Congressional Black Caucus and others, that the police officers are against young black men and black people overall, that they're racist and discriminate against them. And so now the message has been sent out, when you're stopped by the officers, you don't have to respect authority. If you notice that most of these people, they are overreacting to the cops. They're not following their instructions. They don't hold their hands up. They don't answer the questions. The cops try to handcuff them. They're fighting back. And that's not the way you deal with police officers. You follow their instructions. You do what they ask you to do. And then if they should treat you wrong, which is rare, you take proper steps to get some type of good resolution for yourself. Afterward, right? After the fact. That's right, afterward. Yeah, I mean, Reverend, I don't know how many times over the course of my many years in New York radio there have been these tragic shootings of, again, young, unarmed black men or young kids or whatever. I remember one case in particular. They were looking for somebody who was up on a roof throwing things off a roof or something like that. So they had a suspect. They chased him into a supermarket or a grocery store. And they kept saying, come out with your hands up, come out with your hands up. They went aisle by aisle. And all of a sudden, the guy leapt to his feet and had a gold chain or something gold or shiny in his hand. The cop fired, I believe killed him, and I believe he was acquitted. But it was the element of surprise. He thought the guy was going to try to assault him and had something in his hand that he viewed as a threat, so he shot. It could have all been taken care of if the guy just would have said, okay, I'm here, my hands are up.
That's right. And if you notice, in most of these situations, if not all, most of these situations, when it's white on black cops, the victims have rejected or refused to follow the instructions of the officers, and you don't hear these people
Reverend,
talking.
we don't know what happened here, of course, with Michael Brown, and I thank you for coming on, sir. Good to talk to you.
You too, my friend. God bless you.
All right, Reverend Jesse Lee Peterson, folks. Before we go, we want your opinion on our poll question. Should children of illegals be deported or educated? Go to newsmax.com/polls.